Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first TAF educational pop-up workshop. Our topic this evening is self-publishing, and our guests this evening are Rebecca Dalton, Lisa Tomey, and Deanna Martinez-Bey. This is going to be an AMA format, meaning it will be guided by audience questions. We're going to begin by asking our panelists to talk a little bit about themselves and their experience and expertise in self-publishing. So let's start with Rebecca Dalton. Rebecca?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Dalton. I'm a writer writing my first novel, and in the process of deciding whether or not I wanted to self-publish or go traditional, I kind of started learning about the self-publishing process, just to educate myself, and decided along the way that, these were things I needed to know for myself, but perhaps I could help some other folks out. So I do some book formatting. I do some virtual assistant type activities, like helping folks get their books put up on the retailers, the websites, that sort of thing. I do some consulting, so I kind of have helped folks along the way for a number of different avenues. So I've kind of seen a little bit of publishing from start to finish, the whole 9 yards. So,
Lisa?
I have been self-publishing for a number of years. I started out doing some ghostwriting and publishing for my client, and then there's a few years then I started doing some of my own work, and then I started helping other people with their publishing who were trying to do self-publishing and weren't quite sure how to work around it. And actually, Rebecca was a big help when I was trying to do an ebook, and volunteered to help me with that, and that was wonderful. I've never been able to produce one quite like she does, so kudos to Rebecca. Fast forward future, right now it's a year now this month since I started my own press. It's Prolific Pulse Press LLC. And I also do affiliation with the Garden of Neuro Publishing. We do some joints together on some publishing work. Most of my work is poetry, although I'm venturing into an actual textbook for teenagers, about 14, 15-year-old age focus, and doing some other work as well. And so it's gone from self-publishing to small press.
Terrific. Thank you, Lisa. And Deanna, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hey, thanks, Don. So my 14th book is being published this month on March 25th. And the first 3 novels that I wrote, I actually worked with a publishing company. And then after the 3rd one, I decided to come out from the umbrella of the publishing company and be a complete indie author. So I had to learn everything from start to finish. So I've published all but 3 of the books that I have published. And recently I've started putting together a publishing company called 4 Seasons Publishing, where I am going to help indie authors. I'm going to offer reliable, excuse me, and affordable services for indie authors to help them get their books published and networked and marketed and everything in between.
Wonderful. I'd like to begin by asking the 3 of you the same question, and I'd like to start with Deanna on this one, and that is, why should someone, or who exactly is best suited to self-publish their work? What kind of writer would benefit most from self-publishing? Deanna, let's start with you, please.
Sure. I don't think it's for any specific genre. I'm a multi-genre author, so I've published fiction, novels, novellas, and nonfiction, like my cookbooks are nonfiction. So I think when it comes down to it, is as a self-published author, you just have to have the drive to do it. So it's for anybody who has that drive to publish and network their own books.
Rebecca?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I would definitely agree with that. You kind of a little bit have to be the sort of DIY person. You want to have your hand in the pie. You want to have sort of that control over the project. Because if you're not interested in learning all the different parts of it and putting in the time, because it's a time investment to learn self-publishing. If you're really not interested in that, then self-publishing is not going to be for you. But it's not rocket science. So pretty much anybody can learn it and can figure it out, as long as you're interested and willing.
Lisa, do you have anything additional to share?
I think one of the main reasons people would want to self-publish is to have control over their work. When you go to a traditional publisher, like, one of the big corporate publishers, they're going to pretty much take your book and run with it and not really have that much. You're not going to have that much input about how things go with your book. So if you want to have more involvement with your book, then you're going to want to self-publish or work with press that has people that are willing to work with you as editors.
Wonderful. I'm going to start with one important question, and then we'll turn the forum over to the audience. And the big question is, how should a writer start the self-publishing process? I think a lot of writers, especially beginning writers, see what is involved in this. They become a little bit intimidated. They might see it as a little bit overwhelming. So Rebecca, let me start with you by asking, what is literally the very first step towards self-publication?
So the first step would be just kind of getting a basic understanding of the parts that are involved. Very bare bones. You have to have a cover, you have to have the book formatted, and you have to have a place to upload the book onto a retailer like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, so on. So if you have those three things, then you can self-publish right away. Self-publishing can be as basic as that, or it can be very involved with a lot of big plans and a lot of marketing put on top of that. But when you're first starting out, I think the best thing to do is to just research what are the basic things that I have to do and get one or two things up so that you have that behind you. It's a learning process. And then from there, you can build on to that.
Deanna?
I think a great place to start is to create your social media channels, your pages or your page and your group on Facebook, your author account on Instagram, maybe a TikTok. Those are the main ones. And I would start with that. Then when it comes to self-publishing, like Rebecca said, you need to create your platform. So let's say, for example, that you want to upload to KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. My advice would be to first create your author page. And I've noticed that a lot of people have self-published their books, don't have an author page. But it's important to have that because it's what's going to make you look professional. And then all of your books are linked to that page. So I would start there with your social channels, with creating your author pages on whatever platform it is you're going to use. And then I guess I'll wait until we get further in as far as formatting and things like that. But that's your basic, like, start here, down here.
Well, let's open this up to questions then. We definitely want to talk about formatting. That's obviously a very important preliminary step, but I'll open this up to the audience. Who has some questions for our group here? Who would like to start?
Patrick? Thank you. The social media aspect of it. I'll be honest with you, none of this existed when I was a kid. I have a Facebook account, but everybody has that. That's like, I guess that's like the grandparents' social media now. Where should I put my focus on that? You mentioned Instagram.
Where should you put your focus on your social media in general or on Facebook platform?
No, in general, I think. Facebook is Facebook. I'm not going to buy any ads or anything over there. But I do want to ultimately set up a newsletter and have like a gathering place for, anybody that's interested in the process of, writing it and getting it out?
Well, my best advice as far as social are the three platforms that I already mentioned. And I think Facebook is important. And I think it's important to have a page and a group on Facebook. And then of course, Instagram. I think that's important too. There is a huge writing community and author community and readers community on Instagram. And then, like I said, TikTok, which I've had a TikTok account for a while, but I really started focusing on it. And if you're steady with it and you post to it regularly, just like any other channel, you'll start to see results. I suggest my social media clients post 5 to 7 days a week on all their social media channels that they want to focus on. Not every single channel because you go insane, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are the main ones in my humble opinion.
Do you
Right.
not use
Thank
Reddit, Deanna?
I'm
sorry, not
I-
Reddit. I mean, Twitter.
Twitter?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I have an account on Twitter, but I have to be honest with you, I've never sold a book on Twitter. I've sold books through Instagram, through Facebook, and through TikTok. So over the years, I was everywhere. I was on Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the main accounts. I had secondary accounts with like Mix and Dig and Flipboard and Pocket, and I was like all over the place. And I just recently started really focusing on the three main accounts that I've mentioned and have had more success with those three than than all of them.
Rebecca, do you have anything additionally to share?
I do. I think that you made some good points, Deanna. But one thing I'd like to say is that with social media, pick a platform that you actually like to be on, because if you hate it, you're not going to be able to put in the time and effort, and you're not going to be able to make any good connections to the readers. So if you really like Facebook and that works for you, then I'd say go with that. If you can't stand the idea of putting your face on TikTok, then either come up with a way of doing it that doesn't show your face, or just skip it and do whatever else. Maybe Instagram works better for you. But the thing with social media is that it, like Deanna said, it takes time to build a following there. So you have to pick one that you are going to be willing and able to put the time into.
Great.
I
Lisa?
think you need to engage too with the people in the different social media, not just posting about your book, but also show cat pictures, interact a little bit. If you go for a drive somewhere, take some pictures, and that to put that more human interest in there, so that it doesn't look like, oh, she's just out there to sell, and I'm getting tired of this, and I'm going to unfollow that account because that's all they're up to. So
That's actually a really good point, meaning the constant hard sell. As someone who has seen that, that's certainly something you do not want to do. There's got to be a mix of promotion, but as Lisa said, also engagement that keeps people wanting to come back. Any thoughts on that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. On my social channels, I don't just post my books. I typically post 3, 4, or 5 personal posts to one business post. It seems to be, to work out that way. And yeah.
A good way to think about it is as engagement in between launches. So you're not trying to sell a book every single post, but you're trying to keep your fans engaged and top of mind, keep you top of mind for them, so that they're thinking about you when you do go to sell a book next. And so you've had a way to sort of grow a relationship with them.
Deanna, how many followers would you say you have on all your platforms combined?
Boy, oh boy, that's a tough question because, well, for instance, I think on TikTok I've got a little over 3,000 right now, but I've just recently started really focusing in on that one. And then on my author account on Instagram, I think I have maybe like 9,200. And then on Facebook, it's ridiculous because I have so many different groups and pages for things. I guess if you put them all together, it would have to be probably between 75,000 and 100,000. But that's with everything put together.
Right. And of those numbers, which are really impressive numbers, what does that boil down to as far as interest in your work as you drop a new book?
I mean, it's a great question because I've noticed I get more interactions on Instagram and TikTok than Facebook when it comes to dropping a new book. Now, if I post something like, here's my cute little dog, you know, look at her ears, everybody's like, oh, and I'll get like, you know, hundreds of interactions. But you drop a book cover and it's like crickets. And that's just on like my main page. That's why I have different groups for different things, because then when people are interested in books, they'll join my book group. When they're interested in baking, they join the baking group. And then I'm able to focus more on what people are interested in, as opposed to just throwing it out onto my main Facebook page.
Is there cross-pollination between those various groups?
Yeah. So for instance, like my book group, like I write cookbooks too. So I'm going to post all my books there. So whoever likes books is going to see fiction and cookbooks. But I also open up, if anybody's interested, I also open up my Facebook group, the Inner Book Circle, with author Deanna Martinez-Bey, to anyone who wants to come there and post their books. And I think that's important because that'll create more of an interest. It's not just like all my stuff. You know what I mean?
I know that there are opportunities for authors. Well, actually, we're getting a little bit ahead of us.
Yeah.
So again, let me turn to the audience. Who has another question for our group? Danny?
Oh, Ed, you're muted.
I have a question for Deanna. With the success that you're having as a writer and the sales that you're making on social media, wouldn't you make more money going with traditional publishing with an agent?
Well, I can't say, I mean, with a major book publishing company, yeah, if I had an agent that could get me in with a, you know, one of the big companies, I'm sure I would. But with the company with the publishing company that I was with, you know, we had to split the profits. So as an indie author publishing on my own, I get to keep the profits. And either way, I was still doing the networking and the marketing. So it kind of just made sense to me to come out from their umbrella and keep more of the profits for myself. And it's worked.
I think that's one of the most important pros of self-publishing, is that the author gets to keep the vast majority of the money of the sales of their works, rather than just a royalty on sales, which is what you get traditionally, which can be, you know, 3, 8, or 10 or 12%. But if you're a self-published author, after expenses, you could be seeing an 80% return. Is that accurate, Deanna, from your experience?
It depends. It could be anywhere from like 60 to 70 to percent, you know, that you get to keep as an indie author. It really just depends on the platform, I think.
And if you sell direct, it's going to be more than that as well. But also part of that's going to be pricing too. If you price under $2.99, especially on Amazon, your royalty percent is going to be lower than it is if you price between $2.99 and $9.99. So there's a lot of variables that go into it.
Terry, you've got a question?
I do. I have actually 2 questions, but I'll just ask one for now. Does anyone use WordPress, and how does WordPress fit in with trying to do self-publishing?
I use WordPress for my website and websites for other authors that I've put together. So it's basically kind of like a website blogging platform. So you would use either that or perhaps Squarespace or Wix, or, you know, those are a couple other options. A lot of people really like WordPress because it's very flexible. There are a ton of themes, which are little computer packages, code packages or whatever, that make your website look a certain way. So there are a billion of those you can choose from. There are tons of plugins that have all kinds of different functionalities. So you can be very creative with what you do. But along with that comes a little bit of a learning curve. So something like Wix or Squarespace is going to be a lot easier to set up, but you may not quite get as much flexibility out of it as you would if you did WordPress. So it kind of depends on what you're willing to learn. It's not rocket science to learn WordPress, but for some people it's just more than they really want to put the time into. So
Okay, great.
Mhm.
And I have a social media question too for anybody. For folks who are publishing under pseudonyms, which there are some folks doing that, how does that work with social media? Is anybody doing that?
My clients, my author clients who write under different names create different platform, different accounts on each platform under each name.
Yeah, I would say that's the best way to do it. So it's not confusing. So it keeps people right where you want them to be with that name.
Can I make a comment, Terry?
Certainly.
When I started out, I had two names I published under because I had two publishers. And the books were very different. So I had to have two websites and two blogs. And social media, I had to choose because you have to have on like Facebook, you have to have a real name and then you can have an author page.
Mhm.
So I could really only do one, but I finally gave that up. I am thinking of something in the future and going back to that other name, but it's just, think about it. I mean, Jane Ann Krantz goes under 3 names. She's a big author. And on her website, she's got the 3 names. So she's not hiding anything. And she just has different sections for what kind of books they are. They're totally different books. But people in my age group aren't hiding as a 30-year-old who has children or is a school teacher might want to hide her romance.
I think that too was a very big thing with traditional publishing, to do the different pen names, particularly with an author might be writing romance, they might be writing thrillers, and to keep them separate, people will do a different pen name. If your first pen name doesn't do very good, then you resurrect it, you start all over and you do a new one. But with self-publishing, you don't really have to worry about any of that. So I think having everything under one umbrella, can be very good as long as you've branded, your romance has a cover and a blurb that looks different than your thrillers, right? So your reader's going to look at the page and know that they're 2 different things, and they're going to go for what they're interested in. So there's a lot involved with having a pen name. So it's not necessary per se, unless you feel like it is for other reasons. But if you feel like you don't have to have a pen name for whatever specific reason, then just put it all under the same name, and then let readers sort out what they want to do as an option.
Terrific. Lisa, do you have anything to share on this before we move on?
No, I think they pretty well covered that. It's not an area that I really deal with, so.
Allison has a very important question, and she said she'd like to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of putting the book together, where to go to do it, how much something like this costs, etc. If you've already got your manuscript and you're ready to go, you've got a good written, edited, professional looking manuscript, what is your very first step at that point? And Rebecca, let me start with you, please.
Well, so the first step would be getting the cover for the book. Particularly for an ebook, you'd have to have the cover in order to have the book formatted, because the cover is, included in the actual format of the book itself. So you want to look at getting a cover designed for either ebook or print, whichever or both that you're doing. And then from there you can move into getting the book formatted, and then kind of package it together in the way that it needs to be packaged. Are you looking for like how specifically to find a cover designer and a formatter, that kind of thing, or?
No, I just want to go. I can find all that, but where do I go to format it? I just want some names of some places.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you've got some options. There are a couple of tools that are, there are a few tools that are available for formatting. So there's Readsy and Draft to Digital both have a free formatter for books. And then there's paid software that you can buy called one is Vellum and one is a brand new one called Atticus. So there are software packages that can do them. You're going to be somewhat limited in what you can do with those because they work off of templates. So if you are doing, say, a fantasy novel and you have a map at the beginning, or you want to include a glossary, or just different things like that that you might want to do that would differ from this format, that's when you would go with someone like myself or another formatter who would do a custom design for you, so that you can have that flexibility and that creativity. So
okay, so I just want some to put together a quick ebook that may or may not be part of a course, online course that I'm going to create.
Okay.
But I just want to, it's already written. I actually have a cover already, but just it's a nonfiction, so it's simple as possible. I've got a wobbly table here. It's just simple as possible, boom, 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 simple. It's a workbook, so.
Workbook. So you could try one of the Readsy or the Draft to Digital, the free versions.
What is it called?
Readsy, REEDSY, or Draft to the number 2 Digital.
Okay.
But with nonfiction, you're not really you may not be able to get the subheadings and stuff in there too well. If you want really, really basic, or that's something, if you wanted to email it to me, I could give you a quote for it. But
yeah,
so
I can't spend money. I want to make
yeah. I got you. Yeah, no, I got you. So try out those 2 options and see if they'll work for you.
Okay, cool. And then if you want to do a print version of something a little different, what would you say? Of a novel type.
So a print version, if you're the options with those.
No, sorry, back to the ebook. So where does it go? Or do you own it, right? I mean, what is the format? Is it a PDF? What is it?
No, so ebook formats come in two different formats. The first is going to be Epub, which is the format that's most widely used. Pretty much all the retailers use Epub except Amazon. Amazon is moving into using Epub, but they in the past had their own format called Mobi. So a lot of the Kindles, particularly the older Kindles, will only read a Mobi format. So when you get your book formatted for an ebook, you're going to get one of those 2 formats. If you get it formatted for a print book, you're going to get a PDF, and that'll be a print-ready PDF that will be sent to the printer. So the Epub formats will go. You'll upload them directly to the retailer like Amazon or Kobo, or you'll use an intermediary like Draft to Digital or something like that. So you'll get that file, and then you'll upload it wherever it has to go for the publishing process.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Can you automate it, right? So you don't have to mess with it, right? Is it all automated, or what?
For the uploading process?
No, for when you're selling it, if it's for sale.
Oh, right. So, well, it's automated in the sense that you'll set up an account with, say, Amazon, and you'll set up an account with KDP on Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, and then once you have the account, you'll have the option to start a new book, right? And in the process of starting the new book, you'll upload the cover, you'll upload the files, you'll include some information about it, like the categories, the keywords, if you think the price, stuff like that.
Right.
And then once all that's uploaded and you've saved the book and you said, good, publish it, then Amazon will, upload it to their website, whatever they do on the back end, and then they'll handle the sales. So you're done with it. At that point, it's automated. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then do you have any price points that you would suggest for just a simple ebook, informational?
Like a nonfiction kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I would say that totally depends on the genre, the specific niche that you're working in. So what I would say is
It's
go.
it's a book that's already been published in print, but I own the rights to it, so I'm just republishing it as an ebook. So
Gotcha.
can you give me a ballpark? What do people spend? I mean,
Well, for
I mean,
nonfiction,
is it like, sorry, go ahead.
no, well, nonfiction can support a higher price point typically than fiction.
Right.
So, you know, you might see something as inexpensive as $3 or as much as like $15. It really just depends. So I would say go to your whatever niche it is on Amazon and check out what the pricing for the books that are similar to yours are. And then
Right.
if you're planning to publish on Kobo and Barnes and Noble and all the other places, you can check it out there as well. To get a good idea of what other authors in that niche are doing and what's selling basically. So,
Right.
sorry, Deanna, did you have anything to add? I'm sure you do.
Oh, well, I was going to say that for my books,
Thank you, by the way, Rebecca.
I wrote them in Word, and I actually used a .doc file from Word to upload into KDP. Now, I'm only speaking for KDP, not any other platform when I say this, but it's that simple. They upload perfectly fine, and you can do your basic layout in Word and upload it into KDP for your ebook and your paperback.
The KDP is the Kindle.
Yes, Kindle Direct Publishing.
Kindle Direct. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things to take in consideration when you're going to do an ebook that has been a print book is you need to make sure that the ISBN number is your ISBN number and not, as if you go through Kindle or any of the others, not to use their ISBN, because whoever has that ISBN owns that book. So you don't want to use the free ones that they'll all like to give you because you want complete ownership of your book. And if you do an ebook and you do a print book, those are two separate ISBN numbers. So you have to buy a number for each one of those books.
Where do you get the ISBN numbers from, Lisa?
Bowker. You go to Bowker, they are the main
Spell that for-
place.
spell that.
BOWKER.
And how much do they cost?
A lot. For one, it's $100 and some for one. I buy them in packs of 10, so I think it comes around $20 some a piece. You can go larger than that. But for each format of your book, whether if it's hardcover, that's one ISBN. If it's paperback, that's another. If it's an ebook, that's another. So every single format is a different ISBN number.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually the next question on our queue. So Lisa, thank you for that. Before we move on, Joel says that he uses Calibre, CALIBRE, books to do format conversions from, say, Epub to Mobi, etc. And he uses a free program called Sigil or Sigil, SIGIL, from Google to format.
Yeah, I've used both of those, and you'll get a lot of really good flexibility, particularly with Sigil, with the ebook conversion, or not conversions, formatting, because you're formatting in HTML or CSS basically, but that's something that is a little bit of a step above what a lot of folks are interested in learning to do. So if you are really the DIY coder type, then figuring out Sigil and Calibre can give you a very nice result. But if not, there's other options.
Rebecca, when you work with clients, what is the format that they deliver their manuscripts to you?
A Word doc. That's what I like.
Is that pretty much the standard?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Because there's so I take the Word doc and do some work on it and convert it into the different formats, but some of that early work is done in the Word doc. So I don't want like a PDF necessarily, because I can't do anything with the PDF like I can with the Word doc. So
okay, great. Who else has some questions for our panel this evening? Drew?
Well, I just wanted to I wrote it in there, but I wanted to let you know that ISBNs are not required for ebooks for Amazon. I'm not sure about the others, but you do not have to spend the money on an ISBN if you're doing an ebook, because Amazon has their own category or their own kind of their own way to classify ebooks. And when they do the sales, etc., there's no necessity to do the ISBN. I'm not sure about Kobo and the others. ASIN, yes, thank you. ASIN numbers.
Yeah, they'll all give you their own version of a ASIN or an ISBN for their specific platform. But the ISBN is a good identifier for like across platforms, particularly especially if you want bookstores or libraries or that type of institution to be able to purchase the book. They order off of ISBNs, not AISN numbers. So in the purchasing of an ISBN, where you want the book to go is a factor, because as Lisa pointed out, they are costly. So.
Great. Any other questions?
When you register your book with the Library of Congress, you're going to include all those ISBN numbers. You know, they're going to follow through on that. And, you know, when you go to load your book, like say, for instance, if you have your own ISBN number and you go to load it on Amazon, you'll be able to put your imprint in there, your press name, your publisher's name. If you do use their ISBN number, then it's automatically going to say independently published or something to that effect. So it's not recognized as well when you go to try to go to Library of Congress and some of these other places to get your book recognized.
Jenny wants to know at what point does the manuscript get copy edited, and once it's formatted, before, after? Rebecca, let me start with you on that.
Can I just say, please do all the proofreading, the editing, everything up front before you send it into your formatter, because once you start trying to format the book, it goes from a different format, right? It goes from the Microsoft document into, you know, the sigil document or, you know, whatever else. And it is then really difficult, especially if you're doing ebook and print. It's really difficult to make changes across 3 different documents and keep everything straight and not lose your changes. So you want a finished and complete clean manuscript before you go to formatting.
Deanna, any additional thoughts on that?
No, I was going to say the same thing. You want to have that done as soon as you're done editing. I mean, as soon as you're done writing the book, you want to have it edited, maybe copy edited, and have it looked over by a developmental editor as well. It depends what you need.
It is really hard to make editorial changes once it's formatted, correct? Just a pain?
It's a pain. I mean, it can be done. And there are times when I'm going through a manuscript and but it's a pain. So you really don't want to.
Who else has a question? Nancy? Nancy
Just a
Badger?
comment about the difference between traditional and self-publishing is that, let's say I get my print book proof copy and I'm looking at it from Amazon, okay? And oh my gosh, what happened here? And something's off. I can go right in to my document, fix it, save it, upload it. Traditional publishing, that error that my last publisher put in is in there forever. Okay, they used the wrong name on one page for my heroine. Can't fix it, okay? But self-publishing, you have the ability to go in and fix a spelling error.
Yeah,
Almost
that's a valid point.
instantaneous, yeah.
Yep.
That's a valid point, Nancy. And you know, another perk of being self-published is not only being able to go in, you know, and make any changes, but if you wanted to, like I did with one of my books, is I re-released it and I changed the names of the characters and added a couple of different things and then had a whole new cover made. And, you know, that's something that you're in control of as well if you wanted to do that as a self-publisher.
I have a question for Lisa. And we've talked earlier about promoting our book on social media, the various platforms, but we all know that there's a tremendous number of self-published books out there, new ones coming every day. Do you have any advice on what we can do to kind of rise above the flood that's around us so that, you know, our book gets noticed out there? Is there anything unique that we can do to draw readers to our project?
Well, I think you've got to be out there interacting with the people. You have to be marketing your book. You need to market your book early on. You need to start marketing your book when you're thinking about your book. Start talking about the book. Book launches are important. Getting someone to, you know, a team around you to help you. And by a team, I mean people who are your friends that would be willing to kind of rally with you to get your book out there, to get people to notice you. It really does take a lot of people to get the word out about a book. You're really up against a lot of competition. So it's important to spend, you know, a good amount of time marketing your book.
Does anyone else have thoughts on that? Deanna?
I agree 100%. That's why when we first started, I said, first things first is to get your social media accounts set up, because you want to start building that following so that when the book is released, you know, that it's successful. You know, you want to get as many pre-orders as you can before the, you know, before it's released. And that's how you do it.
Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about working with other authors to promote your book, like contests? And I know there's other opportunities out there where writers kind of come together for kind of a group support thing on their projects. Can you talk about that just a little bit for us?
Sure. Networking with fellow authors that are working in the same genre as you is an excellent idea, because you can kind of pull your readership and bring them together so that you can have a wider readership within whatever genre you're trying to work in. You can do that in an informal way, kind of over email, or there are tools out there. The big one is called BookFunnel. So it's you would make an account with BookFunnel, and you can join different promotions. There are different promotional opportunities where you come together with different authors in the genre, and you pull your resources, pull your readers together to do that. You can run contests. You can do I know Nancy and other folks like to do Rafflecopter or King Sumo giveaways, which you can do yourself, or you can bring in other authors together, and say every author kind of chips in an ebook copy for the winner, and then everyone kind of gets new newsletter subscribers that way, and that sort of thing. So you can do newsletter swaps. You can say, hey, if you mention my book in your newsletter, I'll mention your book in my newsletter. And so there are different ways to kind of share your audience, not literally sharing the emails per se, but to network and to leverage your fellow authors' kind of audience for yourself, and to also give to them to help support their new releases. So the indie author community is really on the whole very big on coming together and working together to kind of help everybody succeed, because generally a rising tide lifts all boats and all that, right? So there's a lot of work together that you'll find in the indie community that I don't necessarily think you find in the more traditional community. So that's a good thing, I think.
Awesome, thank you. Jenny Hart has a question, and Jenny, I'm going to let you ask it. Maybe.
Hi, I was just curious about, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was curious about how you all find cover artists to design the covers. Do you work with graphic artists on a regular basis? And how much would a self-publishing author expect to pay for the cover design? And what all does that include? I'm assuming the front, the artwork, the spine, and the the back cover as well? If you have a jacket, does it include the flaps? How does that break down?
Rebecca, you want to jump on that first?
Yeah, I've had a lot of great success with a guy named James over in, well, he's British, but I think he lives in Spain. Anyway, his website is goonright.com. It's when you put it all together, it looks like Goon Right. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so he's a cover designer, and he does custom covers, and he also does what are called pre-made covers. So that's something that graphic artists will do, is they'll put together a book cover, right, and they'll put it up on their website, and they do a number of these, and then any author can come along and purchase that pre-made cover, and then the graphic artist will just put your name and the book title in, and those can be a pretty inexpensive way of finding getting a professional cover done without spending a ton of money on getting a custom cover. So those can kind of run the gamut. You might James, I think, does his for about 45. Some others might go up to like 100 or something for a pre-made cover. It just kind of depends. But that's usually for an ebook cover. So an ebook cover is going to be just a square that's going to look just like the front cover of a paperback book, right? But it's just the front cover with your title and your author name. A print cover is going to have the whole, what they call a wraparound, right? So it's going to have the front cover, it's going to have the spine, and it's going to have the back cover. And those are two separate purchases. So if you're not doing a print, then of course you wouldn't buy the print cover. If you're not doing an ebook, you wouldn't buy the ebook necessarily. So a custom cover is going to really run the range. You might spend a couple $100 on it. You might spend $1,000 on it, especially if you're doing like fantasy and you have like really custom artwork or something like that. I don't necessarily think you have to spend $1,000 on a book cover for it to be a good one. But so anywhere from 50 to a few $100 to get a cover done one way or the other. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Lisa, do you have anything to share on the cover topic?
I have, well, with my clients, and most of them come without a cover. They have ideas of covers, but I do have some that bring their covers, and then I need to adapt and change them. I've got a lot of experience of creating covers, so I do my own covers for the most part. But I probably spend a good amount of money on cover art. So I have an artist that I actually employ to specifically work on cover art. And it costs me generally about between $300 to $500 to get a good piece of cover art, but I get a lot of mileage out of that too. I heard a question, I think it was from Jenny, about the flaps and that. Certain book manufacturers, certain fulfillment publishers have the flap option, like Ingram has that. I think Lulu has that. Amazon does not have it that I know of yet, but they are now doing some hardcovers. So that's a plus, and especially nice if you're doing coffee table or cookbooks to have that hardcover. So they're trying to compete a little bit more, I think, with the fact that people are wanting some different types of covers on the books.
Great. Buddy, my apologies. I didn't see your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to mention as to Jenny's question, I actually used it was just a website called Fiverr to get a graphic artist to do a cover for me. And he did a great job. And the thing that I liked about it, I mean, you could be, dealing with somebody from Indonesia or, France or Spain or wherever, it's international. But you do get to see a lot of samples of what they have done. And the price was great. They did a couple of iterations, and I said, I like this, don't like this. They did a couple of drafts of it, and I was real pleased with it. So, and they've got a lot of different services that they provide. So I throw that out there. You may want to take a look at it. It's Fiverr, 2 R's. But I found that pretty useful. My question was really 2 questions for Deanna and Lisa and Rebecca. And that was what's been the mix between ebooks and physical books that you've sold? What's roughly the mix? And then within the physical books, did you do print on demand, or did you consider printing to lower the unit cost, printing a number of books to have available for sale?
Rebecca, we'll start with you.
So I've had clients who have had a mix of maybe about 50% ebook and print book, but a lot of those print sales were done in person and on a one-on-one kind of basis. So when you're talking about the retailers, generally with self-publishing, the general idea is that, at least for fiction anyway, that you're going to sell more ebooks, and usually a lot more ebooks than print books. Okay. That's probably different with nonfiction and things like cookbooks. Deanna probably will be able to speak about that. But different people read in different formats, of course, but most fiction self-publishers are really working off of their ebook sales.
Got it.
Deanna?
Real quick, I just want to backtrack to Jenny's question. I didn't get to
I'm sorry.
It's okay about the book cover, but I actually have a cover designer that I just started working with, and she's super affordable. You really just have to look. But she does the ebook, the paperback, and the hardcover for like $125, and they're not pre-made covers. And
Wow.
She was amazing. Her customer service was on point. Her work is, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I've posted it. It's the 3 Cabins book. And all I did was give her an idea, and poof, she came up with this amazing cover. So if anybody needs that information, I can give it to you. She's super affordable, but very good. And then as far as my books, I'm definitely 50-50 on fiction, nonfiction, paperbacks, and ebooks. 50-50 on both, meaning half paperback, half ebook. You had asked, Buddy, you asked another question about that. There was like a second part. What was the second part?
The second part was on the print on demand versus printing 3,000 copies or 500 copies or whatever, just to lower the unit cost. I wondered if you had thought about that.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I just don't have space to store all those books. Okay. So even with my publishing company, when I was with the publishing company, I didn't have to, purchase and store any books, and I'm currently print on demand. Just because, I'll be honest, I don't want to be bothered with having to store the books and then go and ship them every time somebody wants one.
Can't you get Amazon to store a supply of books, or is that not the way it works?
I'm not 100% on that.
Okay. You can have, there are various companies that will do what they call fulfillment, which right. means, so you'll have a print run, you'll deliver it to somewhere, a warehouse somewhere, and then they will do that for you. I have never personally done that. That takes a pretty big upfront cost to print, and then a cost to have the fulfillment done. So that's just not something that I've had come up with clients. Okay. But I do know that there are folks out there who do that. A.G. Riddle is a local author, right. And he self-publishes, and he has his stuff fulfilled through Amazon that way. And you're right, that will give you a lower print run cost. I know that there are folks who do Kickstarters, if you're familiar with that platform. Yeah. And they will do a print run of whatever 500 books, and then they'll have some of them will ship those out themselves, and some will have it fulfilled through a fulfillment house for a cost, and so you have to factor that cost in. But that's a pretty big project, and for your first book, I would say go with print on demand. Figure out what you're doing, just kind of basics, the basic process of self-publishing, and then how you're going to get an audience big enough to warrant having a 500 book print run or a 200 book print run, that sort of thing. Got it. Another thing a lot of folks will do, for people who do a lot of conventions and they do a lot of in-person book sales, that can make sense too. Well, right. In the future sometime, right? Perhaps. So that's something to think about too. But you can also purchase author copies at a discount from Ingram. yeah, Ingram Spark or Amazon, both. So you don't, even if you just want to purchase, say 50 copies, you're going to pay more than you would if you had a print run done, but less than if you bought them retail. So, you know, it probably would make sense anyway to start out with that print on demand and just run off a few 10, 20, 50 copies that you might need in that case.
Thank you.
Deanna, did you have anything additionally to share regarding Buddy's question?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with Rebecca as far as the author copies.
Okay.
Because they're just a few bucks and you can, you know, and you can buy up to what, 999 at a time.
Yep. And then go do a second order for
Yeah, for another $9.99. Yeah.
yeah.
Lisa, did you on the issue of print on demand versus, you know, regarding Buddy's question, did you have anything additional?
I do not keep books in stock per se. If they were my books and I were going to go out to a book signing, of course I would have my own books on hand. Some of my clients like to order, I can, you know, or sell book wholesale to my clients. And some of them do that, order so many so that they have some for book signings. But print on demand works really well because it's just so much easier. Why bother with all that other stuff? Just let them fulfill it. They do a good job of it.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thanks all of y'all.
Rebecca mentioned A.G. Riddle as a very successful self-published author. I wanted to note that A.G. will be joining us at Right Now 2022 in April, and that Rebecca will be moderating a panel with him, Ursula Vernon, and Mur Lafferty on writing and selling science fiction and fantasy. So you can talk with A.G. Riddle at the conference about how he goes about self-publishing if you've got some questions on his particular approach. And he's done very, very well with that. Allison had a question about kind of if you're a hybrid author of writing fiction and nonfiction. Allison?
You're muted, Allison.
I know. I know. I'm trying to do two things at once. Sorry, it's been a really hard day for us here today. We've had some medical emergency. So yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to remember what I was trying to ask. Oh yeah. So, do you keep your, you know, novel identity separate from your nonfiction? And how do you do that? Or because I don't know. I can't remember what I wrote. Sorry. Hold on. Let's see. Where did you see?
Wait, let me find it real quick.
Sorry, my husband's at the hospital, so.
Allison.
Yeah. No,
he's okay.
Well, no, with his mother. So I was trying to check to see what he was doing. Sorry. So if you have, I still can't find it. Anyway, if you're writing nonfiction and fiction, do you keep them separated? Like the song says.
Your question was, how do you juggle nonfiction and fiction?
Yeah, there you go.
Website, social media presence for each? Do you keep them separated?
Where did I put that? What is that?
I see it. It's okay.
Anyway, so yeah, how do you juggle your two identities?
I don't separate my fiction and nonfiction, and I write under the same name for both.
Right.
So all of my books are listed like on my author page. You can go and see all of them. Like all my social media channels, as far as being an author, I share both fiction and nonfiction on those channels. The only thing that I do keep separate is like my personal accounts are separate from my author accounts. And then I have a baking account because I'm a baker also, and that is different from my author account. So I keep my businesses and my personal each separate on social media.
Right. Okay. So you don't really have to have a separate, because I already have like a fiction website and everything like that. But
I don't, but you could if you wanted to.
Well, I
sure
have
some
one
people
already.
do.
I've had one for years, but
yeah.
So I was just wondering, how you juggled that. That's all.
Deanna, you don't write under pseudonyms at all, do you?
No,
Never have.
No, just my name.
Yeah.
There are a number of folks I've seen who do nonfiction and fiction. And a lot of times they'll do the fiction under initials for their first name and then their last name, and then their full name for the nonfiction. Or sometimes they'll add like a middle initial for the nonfiction, for the fiction, just to keep them separate on the retailers. Most people will tell you that matters for Amazon in particular. Amazon has something called also bots, which means that when you go on a book page, somewhere on the bottom, it'll say people who bought this book also bought that book. And so ideally what you want showing up in your also bots are other books for that genre, similar books and authors for that genre. So that way you're also showing up on those people's pages, right? So if you're writing fiction and you've got your nonfiction books about writing showing up on there, well, that's not really helping you so much. So there are people who will separate for that reason, and then there are other people who just don't separate at all. They figure that readers are just going to buy whatever they want to buy anyway. So it's kind of a choice, I guess.
Overthinking, right?
Right. So you can overthink everything in self-publishing,
but it really holds you back, because I've got so many things that I'm planning to do. I don't know where to start because there's too many.
Well, that's the writer's conundrum.
It is. So that's something that I've found very helpful is to join, is to listen to basic writing podcasts and join basic writing groups on like Facebook, for example, and just listen to what people are saying, right? The nice thing about the podcast is that typically they have the format where the host will interview a different author each week and ask them about their journey or, whatever, and then ask them some questions about the publishing process and all that, right? So you get, if you listen to enough of them, you're going to get a basic overview of what people are doing. Now, everybody's story is going to be different, and sometimes they're wildly different, and that's fine. But across the different episodes or across the different blog posts or whatever, you want to look at what the commonalities are that people who have done what you're trying to do have done, right? So people have a website, people have a social media, at least one, maybe they did Facebook, maybe they did the new TikTok, whatever, right? So they figured out how to get a cover, they figured out how to get the book formatted, and then they're doing this or that for marketing, right? So research what the people in your genre are doing and just kind of make some notes about what they're doing. And if you come across a word or a term or an idea that you don't know, Google it, figure it out, read up on it. And then
I would prefer, just to give the book to a traditional publisher. Leave me alone. You know what I mean?
It's a load of work. Yeah.
I love doing my own website and stuff like that. And, I'm fine. I've got all that figured out. It's just that I don't know. I guess I don't have the patience to do anything else because, you know what I mean? Because I've built my websites and everything myself. And it's like, oh God, now I've got to learn this.
Well, the basics of self-publishing, once you kind of get them sorted out, aren't actually that complicated.
Yeah, I know. WordPress is fine. You can do anything.
Right. No, that's right. Exactly. If you can figure out WordPress and you can put together a website, you can figure out how to get your book formatted and how to buy a cover, right? What becomes complicated then is figuring out how to market the thing, right? How to get people to buy it, and that kind of then becomes the question.
Marketing is fine too. It's just I need just to get the damn thing in its format and. You know what I mean?
Right. So I'm actually on my website, indiewriterresources.com. I'm putting together kind of an outline, a guide of the process. So you can, it's only started now. Indiewriterresources.com.
INDY?
No,
IE.
INDIE. Yeah. And so, it kind of lays out the steps. But there are books, there are courses, Self-Publishing 101, I think, is the big one by Mark Dawson. I mean, there's different ways that you can figure out what you need to be doing. But once you've got that sort of basic framework figured out, you're golden, right? The big thing is getting people to buy the book. That's the hard part. So
Oh,
if you
yeah, I
feel
know.
if you feel like you're good on the website and the marketing, then it's nothing to get the rest figured out.
So, because I write for magazines and stuff like that, blogs or whatever, etc. As well, and I have just so many hats. I do radio, and I'm a television producer, video producer too. So it's like, which so you would use the same name for everything, right? Except for I had to change. I couldn't find Allison Hill because somebody else has the name.
Mm.
Like
Well,
5
I mean,
million other people.
so that's
I
a good.
thought-
Oh, go ahead.
So I did what you said, like put the middle initial, but
That is a good point too, though, that you bring up. If you're trying to, if you have a website for clips, or that sort of thing, you're writing clips because you're a freelance writer, and it might be good to separate the names so that when people search your name for nonfiction freelance work, that's what comes up instead of, say, your fiction sci-fi or your fiction romances or your mystery. You know what I mean? So that's a good reason to have a pen name, or add the initial or whatever to split them so that the right people find what you're trying to do. So there are good reasons to use that pen name or to separate out your names. It's not essential. It's more what works for you and what you need for your situation.
right, especially if you're doing a lot of stuff online.
Mhm, exactly.
Any other questions for our panels?
Thank you, by the way.
All right, I'd like to conclude this evening then. I want to make sure no other questions. Okay, I'd like to conclude, I think we need to talk very quickly about
wait. Don, I think
I'm sorry,
Patrick.
Rebecca?
I think Patrick might have had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Patrick.
just a real quick one. I'll tell you, the biggest roadblock I had getting the book out the door was finding readers. And I'm not talking a proofreader. I'm talking just someone to just, go through it and go, yeah, I like this, but this sucked.
Beta readers.
Beta readers, yeah. Couldn't think of the name. Sorry, it's after 5 o'clock. My brain shut down about 5:01. And just trying to find a pool of people interested in the genre enough to go, yeah, let's, I had one that's not in this group who volunteered to read it, a friend, and she just destroyed the book. And I said, why? What was the problem? Really, you hated everything about it. She goes, oh, I hate fantasy. And I'm like, my whole book is magic and swords and sorcery, the little, some demons and stuff thrown in. And it's like, okay, you're obviously not the target audience. I just kind of threw away her whole critique because there was no point. But where do you find your beta readers? I mean, do you try to get that out of the people? It's like a catch-22. It's like, yeah, if I had a huge crowd of people following me, it's like, hey, how would you like to get some previews? Here, help me out. But, where do you start, I guess, is the question.
Instagram is a really good place. I find a lot of what I need on Instagram, and I'll just create a meme. For example, I was looking for book bloggers. So I created a meme on Canva, and I just said, are there any book bloggers? Please comment below. And then I had a whole bunch of people comment that they were book bloggers, and I reached out to them and asked them what I needed to ask. So social media is a great place to post something like that. Like if you're looking for something specific, be specific in your post, and you'll probably find what you're looking for. And if you're not friends with anybody, a lot of people know of someone who is a reader in that genre and who would be willing to read and critique your work.
Okay, thank you.
And another thing too, you made a very good point. If you're looking for an editor, a beta reader, an ARC copy reviewer, that sort of thing, you want to go to people who read your genre. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. So Patrick, you might look around on Facebook to see if there are fantasy groups on Facebook, just general fantasy groups, and maybe join a few. And if you see someone who's maybe making comments that you think look good and sensible and they look like a decent person or whatever, you can maybe reach out to a few of those folks and just ask, hey, I've got this book and I'm looking for somebody to read it, and it sounds like that it might be up your alley. Would you be interested? Okay. So, but yeah, if you can find fantasy groups, especially fantasy groups for readers and books and that kind of thing. So.
Well, I mean, I'll let you know, I finally just had to pay somebody on Fiverr, and it wasn't, I think it was like $35, somebody just starting out. Mm-hmm. And she actually gave me tremendously good feedback.
Oh,
And
good.
based on that, I actually did tweak it. She was a big reader of fiction, etc. But that was one person's opinion, and I was just kind of always antsy, like, did I just screw up my book? So, but thank you for those suggestions. Looks like I'm gonna have to get an Instagram account.
Yeah, and Patrick, if you ever need a beta reader for your work in the future, let me know. I know somebody who does it.
Okay.
Your
I'm gonna
genre.
make it
She reads every genre, so she can beta read any type of book.
And
So-
actually, I'm sorry, Rebecca?
Well, I just was going to say, you'll find with self-publishing, it's been around since 2011 with the Kindle. There's a great industry that has cropped up around it. So if you need something, there is likely somebody out there who will do it for free. Another author perhaps will trade services, or somebody does it for, their living. Somebody's a virtual assistant, they format, they do book covers. Anything you would need along this whole self-publishing path, somebody out there is doing it. So, find some reader groups, writer publisher groups, specifically self-publishing groups on Facebook. Find those places where the other authors are hanging out, so you can ask questions and get advice from people who are actually doing it. Like for example, I'm part of a fiction group on Facebook, but it's like a broad fiction group, right? And it includes people who have never been published and people who've only been traditionally published and so on, right? So you don't necessarily want to take all their opinion on how to self-publish because they don't have an informed opinion, right? So go to the places where these people are hanging out, the people who have done what you want to do, and, ask your questions there.
Okay. I mean, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
This has been a terrific session. I've enjoyed it a lot, and there's a lot of great information has been shared. I'd like to conclude by asking our three guests their thoughts about what the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter campaign situation looks like for self-publishing moving forward. For those who may not be aware, he's a self-published fantasy author who went on Kickstarter promoting 4 unwritten books and ended up receiving over $20 million in Kickstarter funds. It was an industry game changer. Rebecca earlier had sent out some links about some important discussions about this. I wanted to ask our 3 panelists, what are your thoughts? Do you think that this will be a game changer? Do you think it's an anomaly? What role do you think something like this will play in self-publishing moving forward? And let me start with Lisa.
My first thought about all of that is, why does he need so much money to self-publish a book? I mean, it's really hard for me to take it seriously. It's like he just gained so much money that I didn't quite understand why people kept pouring more money into the pot, And there's another part of me that thinks maybe I should try something like that. But yeah, it just blows my mind.
Lisa, there is a poetry catalog, a category on Kickstarter, and there are poets who kickstart their work there. So you might look into it. So most of us are not gonna get a $20 million haul off of Kickstarter. But personally, I found it extremely exciting because that is an avenue where he went. So he's started his own publishing company, much like Deanna has. So he's, working with his own publishing company, but essentially he is, self-published this with his small team. And I think that's excellent for the future of self-publishing. It gives us yet one more avenue that we can reach our fans, right? And the reason he's up to $20 million is because he has that many fans who are that interested in what he wants to say, what he has to say. And that's the dream, not necessarily $20 million, although I certainly wouldn't, turn it down. But the dream is to have built such an audience that they just want everything you have to put out. So I think that's amazing. And I think that can only mean good things for us as self-publishers, because it makes it easier for us to get directly to the fans without having to have a lot of middlemen in the way, in between us, taking a cut of the profit and also making a barrier between us and the reader. So I think it's amazing.
Deanna, do you have any thoughts?
I have one thought. It gives us hope And I think, you know, and I think that's important. You know, if you see one person go about something and succeed, it just makes you realize that you can do it too. And yes, he had to build his fan base and things like that, but it can be done. And so I really feel like it just gives me hope, and it makes me want to continue to press on and keep writing and keep pushing and keep networking.
Awesome.
Dawn,
Before we go, yeah,
excuse me, what did he want the money for? Because I had a friend who did that so he could take the time, have someone pay his rent so he could create the book. It was a pre-book. And
Rebecca,
whoever
Rebecca
would
knows
get
more
a
on
book.
this than I do, so I'm going to turn to Rebecca. Do
Okay.
you recall the need for the money, or was this essentially you gave him $40 and you get the books when they're published?
That's what it is. So Kickstarter is specifically a platform for creative to create creative works. It's not a fundraising platform in any way. It's simply about getting crowdfunding the money to help an author get something done, or it could be a musician. They have different categories. It's not just publishing. So basically, the exchange was, you give me $40 and I'll give you these 4 novels. And so that was it. He just had that many people who were that interested in what he had to write. So basically, this is the same as, you know, Stephen King getting a $20 million advance from his publisher, right? Only it didn't come from a traditional publisher. It came from the people directly. So to me, that's more powerful, because that's a fan base he's built up that isn't just going to go away, right? Whereas his publisher could drop in tomorrow. They're not, because he's Stephen King, but they could, you know. So there's power in that, because that's a relationship that, you know, isn't going to go away. Nobody's going to take that away from him. So I think it's excellent.
Well, what's really interesting, though, is that he's saying almost nothing about the books themselves, just that I've got these 4 books I'm going to write. They're different from my other works. Who's interested? And $23 million worth at $40 a pop. That is amazing. Just amazing.
It's totally amazing. But, you know, because he's spent 10 years or whatever working up a fan base, and they know what he writes. They know they like his work. You know, so it's a fun bit of mystery, you know. So for the person just starting out on Kickstarter, would you go that direct that way? Probably not. You want to be more specific about what you're offering if you don't have a fan base, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the thing, is when you're self-publishing, you get a chance to try different things and to explore and to do things off the beaten path that a traditional publisher wouldn't do for you. So
yeah, and he the books are written. He wrote those during COVID when everything was shut down, and he couldn't travel, and he couldn't go to the shows, and he couldn't meet the fans. So he sat down and wrote 4 books.
Yep.
He did everything right. Everything right from the very beginning. We can learn a lot from his process. Before we go, in conclusion, Rebecca, Lisa, and Deanna, any final concluding thoughts on the topic of self-publishing? Deanna, let's start with you.
I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of little details to it, you know, that clearly we couldn't cover all the little ins and outs and itty bitty details tonight. But the fact of the matter is, anybody can do it if you just take the time and, you know, to learn the ins and outs and the rules and all of that. And I wouldn't discourage anybody from self-publishing. It's, you know, Rebecca said, and, you know, once you get it, you get it. You know, once you know how to do it, then it's like now, like, you know, the first time I published a book, I was a little lost, but now it's just like boom, boom, boom.
And there is a lot of help out there for us too. As everyone noticed, there's websites you can go to, there's experts, there's books, there's online classes. So if you are really interested in this, there's a lot of information out there waiting for you. Rebecca, do you have any concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I would say start small. Get just the basic understanding of what the process is, and with the understanding that this can expand quite a bit, right? You don't have to be you don't have to be Brandon Sanderson in the Kickstarter to start out with, right? Just start small, learn the process bit by bit, because the thing about self-publishing is that it changes. Every year there's something new. You're going to be learning something new with this once you start, every year for probably the rest of forever, because it's just a rapidly changing environment. So don't stress it. Figure out your basics of where you need to start, and then learn from there. You'll figure it out.
Lisa?
Try some different platforms. You know, if you get comfortable, you can get comfortable with, you know, certain ones. I got real comfortable with the KDP platform, but I started venturing out to check out some of the other choices out there. And I found it to be beneficial in, you know, because everyone has a certain, you know, positive mark that I'm looking for. So it depends on too, you know, what your client needs and your own needs are. And the other thing is that I need to find out how to get a Kickstarter campaign going.
And on that note, I want to thank our guests this evening, Rebecca Dalton, Lisa Tomey, and Deanna Martinez-Bey, for sharing their experience and their expertise on the topic of self-publishing. This has been great fun. A reminder that our second session on this topic will be held in June. Information on that will be forthcoming. I want to wish all of you a good evening and thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.